everybody, our loyal listeners and our new listeners. It's episode 78 of The Media Beat with Maureen and Claire. Maureen Kerr and Claire Tavernier. Two voices that you are more than familiar with, and you know all about them and what they bring to the world of media and beyond. Facts, figures, deep dives and opinions. If that's what you want on the media, you have come to the right place. And we start as ever with our deep dive, but we'll also be looking at Warner music results. We'll be looking at resilience in European broadcasting. AI, of course, will touch on us. And Maureen will be doing a roundup of all the latest that's going on there, including ChatGPT 5, which I've been using to turn my closest associates into Simpsons characters. But I've got a feeling that it's probably got even more business uses than that. We'll be talking Paramount. We'll be talking Netflix. We'll be talking Barnes and Noble, which is a lovely story. So stay tuned for that. But first up, something I'd never heard about, as usual. That's one of the most popular things I say on this podcast. Oh, I didn't know that. And it's all about what is known as the arms dealer strategy when it comes to streaming. So the distributors and the content creators. Now, I have had it explained to me, but there is no one better to explain exactly how that works than Claire. So I'm going to leave it to her. So Claire, the arms dealer strategy, do explain.
Yes, but you've got me all distracted now because I'm wondering whether we should post the beautiful rendition of us as The Simpsons on our LinkedIn post for this episode.
I think we should. I
feel like we probably should. Okay, interesting. So, arms dealer strategy. This is a term it's a narrative, I'm going to say, that's been going around a lot in the streaming world, and it's been going around for a long time. The first time I heard about it was in relation to DreamWorks and animation. More recently, it's been discussed and talked about, and it was the headline of a Variety article about a year ago to describe Sony's strategy in streaming. And basically, the concept of the arms dealer is, in an armed conflict, the people that make the most money and get the most out of it are the people who are not fighting the war, but who are selling weapons, hopefully to both sides. And that's what Sony and DreamWorks have been doing. They haven't entered the streaming wars. They have stayed outside, and they've sold their content to the highest bidder. And Sony in particular has recently just come out with very good results. And the general talk of the town has been, well, there you go. You see, the arms dealer strategy always works. Compare this to Paramount, who's still struggling with profitability, has invested millions and billions in their streaming platform, and is struggling to really get it off the ground. Therefore, Sony is right and has created more shareholder value, and Paramount in this case is wrong. Or at Paramount, and I should say WBD, no, soon to be only WB and D separately. So I don't agree with this, or I agree in principle. It's true that you get more money if you're selling weapons to both sides. The concept of it economically makes sense. I don't think it applies here at all. I think there are two things that, in order to be a good arms dealer, first of all, there are two things you need. First of all, you need very, very good weapons, because otherwise nobody wants to buy your stuff. And that is what made Sony's strategy so incredibly successful, and they have been very successful, is that they make very good content. They have kept up, and they've been very smart in doing this, creating content that everybody wants. And that is very important in order to sustain the success that they've had in selling their content to other streamers. But the other thing you need to be, in order to be a good arms dealer, is that you shouldn't have your territory invaded. And that's also what's happening with Sony. They didn't have a direct-to-consumer business. They didn't own TV channels. Their business model wasn't crumbling because people were moving away from television and into streaming. If you compare this with Disney, who, remember, the very early 2000 to 2010 started as an arms dealer, as it were, because they were licensing enormous amounts of content to the early players in this field, including Netflix. Disney realized at some point that their entire business model was going to be destroyed by these streamers, and they didn't have any other excuses, any other choice than to create a streaming platform, which, by the way, has turned out to be quite successful. Similarly, Paramount was entirely reliant at this time in their history on revenues from broadcast channels that were going down and down and out down and are still going down. And so for them, going into, expanding their direct to consumer business, which started on broadcast into streaming, was an absolute necessity if they wanted to survive. So it's very unfair, I think, to compare their strategies. Who's created more shareholder value is another question. And actually, I was going to treat that, but I'm not, because I suspect Maureen's got views on this. I'm going to hand out to her. Got a few more points to make, but I'll hand them to Maureen. What did you think of the arms dealer narrative, Maureen?
The arms dealer narrative, or as I will probably say, the wise neutral in these streaming wars, because I don't like to talk about guns. But no, I think you're absolutely right on all fronts, and I probably come at this in agreement with you, Claire, but maybe slightly different angle, and I'm sure we'll agree towards the end as well. But I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Sony's position today, as a result of avoiding setting up a streaming business, clearly, they're in a very strong position. But I don't think that was a function of strong discipline and a strong strategic case. I think it was, and as you've already pointed out, I think this was a mix of circumstances, timing, and corporate structure. And I'll just unpack that a little. First, as you've already pointed out, Sony sidestepped the streaming cash burn because it knew it would not be able to compete. It did not have, as you've pointed out, the network. It didn't have that big subscriber base that it needed to defend. It did not have that big audience, and it would have to have actually started from scratch. And so what I think they missed out, though, was Sony's missed out on what Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Disney's benefited from. And guess what? That's the operational muscle that it's now created. So everyone has had a crash course in this essential operational leaning, right? So churn control, pricing, upselling, subscriber retention. And guess what? We've seen Disney Plus ARPU rise in the US by 15% year on year. And as we've also seen it introduce these ad-supported tiers, modest price hikes, and also Warner Brothers is really improving some margins via some more tighter marketing and strategic subscriber mix in that. And as I go back to this point of, it was a matter of circumstance rather than a disciplined corporate strategy. The shareholder base of Sony is completely different. It's a conglomerate, diversified. I know Disney is as well, but this is a business we're talking about gaming, electronics, and music. They weren't, excuse me, in any way dependent on streaming to drive the growth strategy that Disney needed, Paramount needed, and everyone else around that did put in place the streaming platform absolutely needed to do it in order to enable the transition. But I think this is the point that you are probably going to lead in with and probably finalize with, Claire, if I may. But you'll probably say that everyone started to talk about the economics of streaming, and the city analysts were saying, hey, hold on a minute, I don't want you to just go for broke for subscribers at any cost. I need you to go for broke for profitability for every subscriber. And as we know, Warner Brothers has got, 225 million or whatever it is, dollars in streaming growth offsets, only offsets maybe 50% of the decline in linear, which is probably about 500 million. So we know this is an issue, but you can't rewrite history. Whatever happened 4 or 5 years ago and what they're reaping today in terms of benefits is not a function of strategy there. It was circumstances. It was basically the need to operate as a conglomerate, not in the same sort of vein as Disney, Paramount, and Warner. And so I think we're probably at the midpoint as we've been discussing. Everyone's going for bundling. Everyone's seriously thinking about, content, the type of content and types of either sports or live or whatever. I think we're midway, and I think it's too early to call that streaming is not and was not the right direction to take for some of these other legacy players. So I'll hand off to you, but I know you're going to end with something which will sort of prove the point about pivoting strategy, Claire.
Now, I think you've made some incredibly great points, which I'm going to just take one and expand a little bit on it, which is Sony as a much more diversified company than any of the others. And yes, you've said Disney is very diversified. They have the consumer goods and they have the parks, but Sony has gaming and it has music. And actually, music, film and TV is very small. Sony's total revenues are almost $18 billion, and film and TV are only about 2.5 of those. It's quite a small business for them, and it's absolutely focused on licensing and distribution. I will say that they have invested, and I think it's quite interesting. They have invested in one D2C, one streaming product, and it's Crunchyroll. Do you remember Crunchyroll, Maureen? I feel like we looked at it together.
We did look at it together.
Crunchyroll is the leading global anime streaming platform. Of course, Sony originally is a Japanese company. It's obviously quite a small compared to the large streaming platforms that we have. It's very small. It's got free tiers and a premium subscription pack, and it's got 17 million paid subscribers and probably about a few 100 million free users. It's been very successful for Sony. It's been their little toe dip in the ocean of streaming, and they've focused on that one little bit of their strategy, which makes sense because it connects with the gaming that they already have and it connects with the music, and so it was a very strategic bet, but they didn't expand. I think for them, for Sony, it was, I think, absolutely, I would argue, the right decision not to enter the streaming world. They would have, as you said, they didn't have a base, they didn't have the direct to consumer experience, and they would have spent much more money trying to compete, and so they made the decision that made sense for them. I think Disney also made really, at some point, gutsy strategic decisions, and they are now reaping the rewards, and it's taken a while, and there've been a lot of investments and not all of the money that was spent wisely, I would argue, but you can see now that they've absolutely transformed their business, and for them it was existential. And I agree with you. I think with Paramount, with WBD, we are really in the middle of the cycle. You can start to see the beginnings of what might look very positive. The fact that they're all splitting up their legacy business is an interesting sign. It'll be interesting to see how they do, but they feel confident now that they can sustain a business that's mostly made of streaming. But I don't think they had a choice. I don't think it was an option for them to stand back and be an arms dealer or a neutral, the neutral bit, an interested party, I'm going to call it. I genuinely think that to pretend today that they had any other option than to at least enter this business they would have been absolutely shattered by Wall Street if they hadn't even tried. So I don't think these companies can be compared at all. So as a conclusion, I don't agree with this narrative, although it's neat, and I can see why people gravitate to it because it's a nice story, but I don't think it actually works.
And I would agree with that. And I'll add one small point as well. We are not saying that Sony is not a fantastic business. It is a business, but it should not be included in the pool of studios that did go down that road for streaming. I mean, I saw the stats, and you did as well. I mean, Sony Pictures just reported, a staggering 76% year-on-year jump in operating income. Hitting I think something like 120 million, 130 million for the quarter. So we are applauding them for the decision not to get in. But that was probably, as we keep the operative word here, it was not a choice that they could make. It was essential for them just to carry on with their existing strategic direction. Yeah.
Brilliant. Great conclusion, great insights, great definition. I was right to put the trust in you, Claire, for explaining what it's all about. But Maureen, that was fabulous analysis, very deep. One of the deepest deep dives. I like these double-header deep dives, which is pretty much what that was. So now all know what arms dealing is. Use it as a metaphor for the streaming world. Absolutely fascinating. I wonder if there's all sorts of other models you could use, like the drug dealer model, where you give the first episode free. I don't know. That was great. Fabulous deep dive. Let's call it a double header. Educational and insightful. So hooray for Sony. We love them. So inevitably, we now move on to the section that covers news. So we call it In the News. And we start. So Maureen is out in the sunshine, looking cool as a cucumber, under a sort of Edwardian parasol, is the only way I could describe it, with a beautiful fringe. And she peers out from underneath it at Warner Music Towers to give us the scoop on the latest results. Maureen, over to you.
Wow, I love that. I just pictured myself with this parasol and a white long flowing dress, which is really strange. But anyway, let's get to the
We'll
fact.
also generate that picture on ChatGPT
Oh,
for our LinkedIn subscribers, obviously.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you do it still in Simpsons style or even South Park? Maybe South Park. It'd probably
South
be
Park,
better.
yes, yeah.
I'll see
More
what I can
prescient.
do.
More prescient, I think we say South Park. Yeah. So anyway, let's change the energy here, because if you listen to Warner Music's earnings call the other day, Robert Kinsall basically was changing his tune, and he came out saying growth is back and we're picking up the pace. And as you will all remember, over the last couple of quarters and certainly last year, the results were not looking great. But anyway, it did pick up pace, and they had a really good quarter, which is good. And they're really sort of beating the drum. I'm trying to use as many music analogies as I possibly can. They're beating the drum, and the mantra is, yes, the numbers are up. Anyway, it's true. And Luminate, the research company that we love and trust, did sort of share some market research figures as well, which is good. So market share in the US is up by a full percentage point year on year. Now that's damn good, given where Warner was last year. Anyway, so they were clearly talking up their slate, really strong slate of musicians, and also the fact that they'd got some Billboard Hot 100s, number one spot for 9 weeks with its debut album by Alex Warren. So really pretty good stuff. They also were looking at revenues had grown just shy of 8%, and operating income was up about 16%. This is not supposed to be a press release, because everyone can basically look at those press releases. But two things that I did discover. One was, I think they really are quite clear under Robert Kinsall about the strategy now. And one thing that they made clear was they were not discussing AI. Now, we'll pick that up in a minute. They did not say a single thing about AI. Instead, they were talking about pushing a core business. They were driving through cost savings to the tune of about 300 million. So we'll need to see where that comes and where that falls. But they want to reinvest in artist development and also in high growth markets. And that will include APAC, so the Asia Pacific markets. They've put in place some new senior heads as well across Europe and in Asia. And they're also talking specifically about a joint venture. Now, this is really pretty key, actually. Bain Capital has partnered with them in a joint venture to, let's say, and I'm not going to go through the numbers, but up to about 1.2 billion of capital is available to this joint venture to start to buy up catalogs. So they're really looking at more distribution, more marketing, and buying up some high-end catalogs, which is going to be really interesting to see. And the slate that they spoke about, you've got Ed Sheeran, Zach Bryan, Cardi B, and 21 Pilots. So they've got a really nice, strong sort of slate of activity. But as I say, one thing they didn't talk about was which really was a standout was AI, and it was only when they were pressed by some Q&A that they spoke about their app that they have, their internal app. And it's really in stark contrast to Universal, which is being very vocal about all the initiatives that they're running with, and of course all the tactical stuff that BMG, so Bertelsmann Music Group, is deploying. So really interesting. But as we know, Warner sits at maybe second or third player in the big market. You've got Universal first, Warner, you've got Tencent, and of course BMG, that are pretty close by and nipping at their ankles to try and sort of position themselves. So it's a really highly competitive market environment. But under Robert Kinsall's stewardship. He's saying we're going to stick to the core business. We're going to put through efficiencies. We're making sure that we've got a strong development slate. I'm sorry, I'm talking sort of TV terms here because that's what I sort of lean back into. And we will deploy AI, but we're going to do it in a very quiet way. So I thought, all in all, a really confident quarter for them, signalling that they're ready for a fight. They've got the Bain capital behind them. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch what Warner does. And we've always said this when Robert came in, that he's going to really shake it up. And we're starting to see the fruits of that. Claire, I mean, I thought it was a really good signal from this earnings call.
Yes, it was very good. I mean, they're still losing money. Or they are losing money again because they weren't last year. I need to point this out. They were in deficit this quarter, partly because of investments. Robert Kinsell and his team have obviously done a lot to try and improve profitability. There've been rounds and redundancies and everything that was probably the right thing to do. But you're right that they are very clearly the message to the market was we're focusing on content. And it really reminds me of what we're talking about with Sony to some extent. They're looking at this, they're saying we're not going to win the AI war, so we're going to have the best content, and that's how we're going to win this. And I think it's a very interesting strategy. I mean, it's not quite the same, obviously, because in the music world doesn't work with like the streaming world, but this non-emphasis on AI is absolutely notable because everybody else is talking about AI. Doesn't mean they're not doing anything. It means they're definitely not pushing that story, that narrative to the market. He did say in the end that they were doing various things in AI, but he doesn't want that to be the story. He wants the story to be about content, about having the best artists, having the best catalog. That's the point of the joint venture with Bain Capital. So it was very interesting. Good results financially despite announcing a loss, but a very narrative driven earnings call from my perspective. He was signaling the market, and the market liked the signal because obviously the impact on the share price. We've talked a lot in this podcast about the fact that sometimes it's not the numbers, it's the story you tell. And that story, the story about not pushing AI front and center, and the story about really investing in the fundamentals, in profitability and in content, that story really, really resonated. So that's what I took away from the earnings call.
Yeah, what a lovely phrase that. I remember that from other podcasts that we've done. The story more than the numbers, almost the qualitative rather than the quantitative.
Managing the expectations. Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Managing the expectations of the market. Yeah.
I like it. And people like a story, I guess. I mean, people like numbers as well. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. We now move on to European broadcasting. It's an area that, has grown a lot of concern about over the years, the more traditional, shall we say, broadcasting firms, but there are signs of resilience. And our European broadcasting correspondent, Claire Tavernier, actually, is going to give us that story. Claire.
Yes, resilience. I think one of my kids at school, in primary school, their teacher always talked about perseverance. You have to persevere, and then it'll all be fine. And I have to say, the European broadcasters went for that as well, and they've just delivered some really, really good numbers. And when I'm talking about M6 and TF1 in France, and RTL Group, which is obviously in Luxembourg, based in Luxembourg, but mostly set in Germany, and also even ITV, perhaps not quite to the same extent, delivered some good results. And what we're seeing is two things. We're seeing growth, solid, profitable growth in the streaming business, much more so than the earlier, where equivalent US networks were at the same time in their development. And we're seeing less decline in the traditional TV business. And those two things combined make for, very decent results. They're relatively flat in terms of revenues. That's not surprising. Last year was the Olympics and sort of football tournament, I think. Okay. So Oliver's rolling his eyes. Anyway, the point is that was a bumper year for revenues. So the fact that they're only slightly down, and I'll give you some actual numbers, that's probably a good thing. M6 first half was down 3.7% year on year. which is not that much considering how big last year's first half of the year was. TF1 was stable, a slight dip, -1%, but that was offset by their production arm, and RTL declined by 3%. So they sort of, and ITV was only down 0.9%. So again, resilience is the word I will again pull out to say that their revenues did well. All of the streaming numbers look really positive, both in terms of users, but most importantly in terms of advertising revenues and subscription revenues. And so, and they've all invested enormous amounts of time and effort into cost management, which is paying off because the profitability is looking much better. And that contrasts with where we are in the US, where revenues from traditional broadcasters are definitely dipping much faster. If we look at for instance, Sinclair, which is a US network group, their adjusted EBITDA for Q2 of 2025 was down for 35%. And what we're seeing around the US is a much faster move towards streaming, less resilience on the broadcast advertising side, probably because there's more competition and there's less dominance. Not a great word, but that's what we have in the European broadcast market. And they are struggling to monetize the streaming in the way that the Europeans have done. Now, the Europeans are definitely helped by the fact that there's one or two large commercial player per market. Many of them have made alliances with each other, so they're playing quite nice with each other, which is not necessarily what's happening in the US, and that has definitely benefited them. But a really good set of results. What do you think, Maureen?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's a couple of points that you made. I mean, if you zoom out of these quarterly figures, we are seeing, especially in Europe, a structural pivot. And to your point, this isn't a seasonal blip. So even if you strip out, all the sports activity, I put more pointedly, I mean, RTL in particular is clearly leaning into the streaming as a growth engine. And of course, as we've commented on, they're now going to be more of a sort of scale play, especially having now acquired Sky Deutschland. That deal, I think, is really going to give RTL Plus more reach, while maybe quietly sort of preparing for profitability by 2026, 2027, I think. You're absolutely right. ITV, much more defensive. It's getting the sort of costs under control, or protecting its cash flow and pushing viewers really heavily towards ITVX. I've seen so much campaign, of them pushing in that direction where they should get good ad yields, and I think engagement should be a bit more healthier. And you're absolutely right. TF1, whoa! I mean, they are really bolstering their sort of their digital reach. And as we've commented on earlier in the year as well, their deal with Netflix, that's going to be really interesting. That partnership is the first of probably many that will happen, but they certainly have exclusivity there. And yeah, I think the common thread here is everyone knows the ad-funded linear TV model is in structural decline, and they're all racing to bulk up digital audiences, and I think they're doing that pretty well. Control more of their own platforms, alliances, Claire, as you've spoken about, and really getting their costs in line. We're constantly seeing lots of people sort of moving ship or jumping off and out, but no longer, I think, we're sort of seeing the weather. Well, they are probably weathering a very soft ad quarter as well, which is interesting. So anyway, yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I love your comparison to the US, just to put it into context. I thought, yeah. So interesting structural pivots that we're seeing, and I'm sure we'll be, commenting on this as we enter into 2026.
I think the Structural Pivots were an indie band back in the 80s. I'm sure I've seen them.
Was it your band, Oliver?
Yeah, it was fun. Structural Pivots. Yeah, we were great.
It's a good name. Yeah,
it is. We'll be in around 85. So that was good. By the way, I have a question for Claire. What is the French? I can't imagine what the French for perseverance is. It must be about 30 syllables long.
I think it's perseverance.
Perseverance. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a word. I'm pretty
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was kind of counting on you there as a French person. But anyway.
You've heard me there. If anybody disagrees, if any of our many French listeners have a better word, but I'm pretty sure it's just perseverance.
And I think it's just got a few accents on the
It does have
E's.
accents, yes.
Yeah.
We
So that
add the
makes it
accents.
longer. There we
Well,
go.
I don't know if we've added the accents or you've taken them out. Probably the second one.
I remember if I put an acute
Glass
instead of a
full or
grave.
glass empty. Yeah.
If I put an acute instead of a grave, my teacher used to say that was a grave mistake, Turnbull.
Well, it really was. Come on.
Terrible. It's pretty
Oliver.
Brilliant. So that was good. Good old European broadcasting. Good old for the traditionals. We now have a story. Yes, it's a regular feature. We probably need its own jingle, actually. It's the AI Roundup. So it would probably need to be something like AI Roundup. Something like that.
Oh my God,
AI
please not.
Roundup.
Please
Yeah,
not.
That's
Please not.
exactly the voice of AI.
Yeah, that's right.
In
Like
my
the
head.
robot. Yeah. Although it's moving on at a pace.
I think if we had any budget, we would sample Lost in Space. Danger, danger, Will Robinson. But
I love that. We've got to have that, but we might not. Is it out of copyright? It might be out of copyright. So maybe
is it 70 years old?
No,
I don't know. Well, we'll see.
It's not that. Anyways,
that's not. Anyways, move on.
Moving on. Yeah. So the AI Roundup. Well, who else? It's Maureen. What's the AI Roundup this time, Maureen?
Okay, and I'm going to speak at 1.5 times so I can be really quick about this because I think everyone's just probably sick and tired of reading about ChatGPT 5. I know I am. Right, so let's be really quick. I've got 2 points to make. So ChatGPT 5 was launched last week, much to the upset and annoyance of all of the people on Reddit who basically said, how dare you launch this without telling us in advance, although we all knew it was coming. Right, so you had Nick Turley as well as Nick Turley, who's the creator of GPT, or rather the steward across GPT, was somewhat surprised of the backlash. Now, GPT was launched and everyone was excited about it. But the drama came when everyone logged into GPT and they realized that all the legacy models of 3.5 and 4.0 had gone. And it was like, what? Don't take my baby away from me, and within days.
It's a Nintendo Switch all over again.
It's like, however, they reacted really quickly and they put those legacy models back. Although
they didn't do that with Nintendo Switch, but
no, they didn't. Anyway, ChatGPT gives you now a couple of options, and you've got auto, fast, and thinking mode, and all of those modes are effectively you either want it to think or you want it to bloody hurry up. All right, so that's ChatGPT 5 in a layman's terms, okay? But that's how I would do it. So basically, it's thinking modes, trade speed. Okay, that's what that's all about. Now go and try it. It is kind of interesting. It's not yet got the multimodal functions that we're all kind of expecting, although I have to say, and I still haven't seen the image that Oliver says he did create, because he's probably got the enterprise version. And so it'd be really interesting to see whether or not it's truly multimodal, but I think it's still got a way to go for that. Anyway, that was the launch. There is something which is really quite humorous about it, though, is that they're responding, OpenAI that is, and Nick Turley in particular is responding to people's complaints about the fact that it wasn't emotional enough and it was too robotic, ChatGPT 4. So we're going to sort of, instill some sort of personality into this. Anyway, we'll see what that looks like. But apparently there will be warmer personality weaved in. So try it and see what you think. But I think they're much more interesting AI.
Can I interrupt before you move on?
You can.
This is not. I have nothing to add. You summed it all up. I love it when the Reddit people get annoyed, get exercised. They're usually right. Come on. But I have to tell you the story about a lady I met who told me that she trained ChatGPT to be really mean to her because she thought he was just was just being overly sycophantic, and she just kept telling the machine to tell it to her like it was, tell it to her straight, stop wrapping it up, and in the end apparently ChatGPT started shouting at her.
Yeah, that is
so you can absolutely train it to be mean if that's what you want,
or to make it a bit more analytical and a bit more sort of direct and focused. And we've got now. I did this with another person. I shan't name them; they don't want to be named. But we've created our own customized GPT 4.0 that really does look at things a little bit more analytical and not sycophantic. And we actually say to it, BS and get your act together, mate. And it says, okay. So,
with that exact accent. Yes.
exactly. Anyway, back to the serious world of, or not so serious, but serious being the operative word, Perplexity, the other AI search based company that's always in the press, has seriously bid for Google Chrome browser. And as we know, and we've been following and we've been looking at the regulator's response to Google's so-called, or allegedly it holds a monopoly across search and other areas. It may be as part of its remedy to say that it is no longer just a dominant player in search, may need to hive off Chrome. Although it doesn't want to do that and it will fight against that, Chrome is possibly out there as an option to be bought. And Perplexity has gone out there and said, this is a serious bid and we would like to buy it for $35 billion.
All cash.
All cash. And their response to, really, can you do that? They said, well, OpenAI have put out a bid for it, so why can't we? And the beauty of it, it's not about what I think, and Claire, I'd love to get your thoughts around this. And there clearly is a serious point to be had about whether or not Google will need to sell it off, and they're trying desperately not to do that, and instead find a remedy that says, look, we'll probably do a deal or modify our agreements with Apple, Android, and Mozilla, and so on. That we'll do something, but we're not selling it. That basically every single, so there's a serious discussion to be had there. Every single time some news comes, like TikTok's going to be sold, Perplexity is the first one, and Perplexity is doing a really interesting PR game here. It wants to be front and center of news. It wants to be out there just so everyone remembers it and just sees that it's around, because every single press, the press association, every single news outlet will cover it, and that's what it's doing, in my view. It's just getting PR coverage. TikTok earlier in the year, now Chrome earlier in the year, so everyone will know, and this is cheap PR for them. So there is a serious thing here, and that is about Google and how the regulators will find a remedy for its dominance. But nonetheless, I think Perplexity is doing a really interesting thing on the PR side. So they're the AI roundup. I think is enough for. There's so much else going on. I don't think it's worthy for any further discussion at this stage.
I'm just going to pick up very quickly on your Perplexity needing PR idea, because it's very interesting. Do you know what ChatGPT's market share is in the, let's call them the AI chatbot market?
Is it chatbot or search? Because it's just a
Well,
chatbot.
the bits, the things where you could put something in it and it will respond.
Like
what's
Gen
the
AI?
what's
like a Gen AI market? I reckon it's probably 60%, 60-70%.
It's 82.7%. It's absolutely dominant, and it's dominant because it was the first entrant, and it's dominant because it's become a brand name that means, it's like we Google stuff or we chat GPT, Gen AI, that it becomes the brand names for Gen AI. And Perplexity is the second one. It's which is a great place to be, but not so much when everybody else is in, when ChatGPT is at 83%. And Perplexity used to be at 14% and has gone down a bit. It's gone down to 8%. And so you're absolutely right. They're the challenger. They need to get their brand out there because people still don't know about them in the way that they know about ChatGPT. The others are tiny, by the way. Copilot, Gemini, DeepSeek, Claude, they're all under 5%. So they might be, and Copilot's the biggest one, but mostly because it's packaged into Microsoft and people don't have a choice. So I completely agree with you that Perplexity is absolutely fighting a PR battle there because they have what they think is a good product and people don't know about it. That being said, they've also said, and we covered that a while back, they were launching a browser. So they are probably also seriously thinking that the browser is the way into a lot of this stuff. So it's interesting that they went for Chrome and made this unsolicited 35 billion all cash bid. We are in a very weird world at the moment when it comes to money. But anyway, yes, for me, the point here is that ChatGPT is so dominant at the moment that Perplexity is very much trying to find ways into people's perceptions.
And Claire, just to add to that though, because it'd be interesting to see what the definition of that market is, where you got that sort of market share figure. But I totally agree with you in terms of the chat bots. Now, Perplexity though has always positioned itself as it wants to play in the AI search side, and ChatGPT has become the search engine. People are going into ChatGPT just to search. Like, for example, oh, I've got 3 ingredients in the fridge. What can I have to eat tonight? And it comes up with, a whole sort of recipe plus also ingredients and a shopping list, So totally agree with that. And I think that where everyone wants to start to play, and I think this is going to be really interesting to see, and we can discuss that, as the year unfolds, is definitely going to be around advertising. As well as ChatGPT though is free for most, and not much by way of conversion to paid, and then you've got enterprise, so you've got a DTC model, and then you've got a B2B model, which they need to sort of grapple with. So I don't actually think they are as on firm footing as everyone sort of believes, because there's a volume play going on here, but most people are not paying for it. So they'll need to turn the corner soon. And that's where I think the discussion about the market definition and then their share in that is going to make a big difference, as to where they want to pivot to and what they want to play in. It's a land grab at the moment. Absolute land grab. Absolute land grab, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I know that we need to move on.
Yes, I think so, but it's wicked to play with as well, as I'm proving. Thank you very much for that roundup, that piece of news within the news. So that was the AI roundup from Maureen, informative and in-depth and enlightening as it was. And that takes us to the end of In the News. And so we move on. And of course, it's Podmojis. And 3 today, starting with Maureen. Again, Maureen, very busy today, but facing up to the challenge brilliantly. Paramount Day 1, CEOs walking away with wads of cash. Put that into a very simple Podmoji if you can, Maureen.
Okay, so I'm going to forget about the cash, but Paramount, Day 1, David Ellison, of course, Skydance, finally acquired Paramount. I'm just going to speak really quickly now because we only have like a minute. This is going to be a fast round. Day 1, David Ellison walked into CBS offices and said, "Hey, legacy business, I love you." Now, I think that's a really interesting sort of play that he is suggesting that news is going to be the strategy for Paramount. No, it's not. It's going to be hard and cruel. And for the next probably 6 months to a year, there are going to be significant and major layoffs and cost cutting and goodness knows what. It's going to be really bit of a hardship going on here. But the headline that I think we should point out is that whilst there's going to be cost cutting and financial discipline, it is staggering to see that David Ellison has now written a check for almost $9 billion on day 1, and 2 parts of that money, one part was $7.7 billion for a 7-year agreement with UFC rights for Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, and I know Claire's going to comment on that. And the rest, the residue, is to South Park. Yay! For it to really do its great stuff that we all love and some others love to hate. So anyway, I think this is a really interesting, and I really want to get this little comment in, and then I will give you my Podmoji. It is the new guy tax in Rupert Murdoch tradition. David Ellison is overpaid for the UFC rights, double what others were prepared to pay. I think Amazon was going in at half that, and a few others were going in even less than that. I think the Amazon bid was reportedly to be 800 million. Netflix, YouTube, ESPN, and DAZN were all in there, but could not meet that price. Anyway, I'll stop there. But it's going to be really hard and cruel, and I'm sure for the next year, Claire and I will cover to see strategically what is David Ellison going to do and where is he going to take Paramount on this next journey, which will be technology and it will be content, and I think it's probably going to be sports driven as well. Claire.
So
here we go. My Podmoji is my penguin.
Yes, penguin. But it's moving around to signify sport.
Alaska. Oh yeah, and there, penguins in Alaska. I think that's
and people being thrown out into the cold. Okay,
exactly. Thank you. That helped. Yeah.
No worries, Claire.
I want to pick up on because I know we're all worried about them, and you have said it's going to be hard for the industry and for people, and a lot of people are going to lose their job. And two people that have lost their jobs were the two of the three co-CEOs of Paramount, Chris McCarthy and Brian Robinson. I want a minute to think about them. They each got, in addition to their base compensation, which was $19.5 million each for last year. They each got, in addition to that, approximately $18 million each as a severance package. So I want to reassure you that they are going to be okay. And we look forward to finding out what they will be doing next and at which streamer they will reemerge. But good for them. Anyway, yes, you're right. It's again, narrative driven, good narrative. I think it was the right thing to do, but it's absolutely going to be a tough year. And my Podmoji going to go back to I never know how to do this one. It's the money.
Money, yeah, that's good.
I'm spending the money. It's the early days money spend. Imagine that. Imagine that. We'll create that in ChatGPT 5. Anyways, that was me.
Lovely. Got that. Yes, that was nice. Brilliant. The next one, Maureen again. Good Lord, you're going to be exhausted. But it is very much in your ballpark. Is Netflix going into music streaming, and presumably why?
Okay, if this rumor is true, then it's worth asking Netflix, really, 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 do you have the bandwidth? And what's the strategic reason for doing this, to enter music streaming now? The company's already, it's already a crowded market. Netflix has got a crowded agenda, live programming, sports rights, an expanding ad tier and a growing games business. Does it really want to enter the fray and compete with the likes of Sony, as Claire's articulated, what a strong, fantastic business that is? Universal and Warner, we just spoke about the results, and it, is taking a strategic turn and good traditional slate. Really, why does it want to do this? And where would the fit be? I know music is already part of Netflix storytelling DNA, soundtracks and live concerts and the like, but they'll have to start the negotiations with the big labels. And we saw what that meant and what that did to Spotify and others. So I wonder whether or not this is it a rumor? Are they really thinking about this strategically? I'd tell them not to do it. It's a distraction. But Claire, I don't know what you think.
Wait a minute. Yes, goodness me. A different animal, a reindeer. That's not convoluted at all. It's yes. Don't do it until. Don't even think about it until Christmas. I don't know.
Well, it's a Nordics. Nordics elk. It's a Nordics elk.
Right.
Spotify music. Go away. It's saying Spotify's in this play to play.
Oh, right. Okay.
Go away.
So it's a Swedish.
Go away, Netflix.
Swedish elk. Yeah, no, that makes an enormous amount of sense. Well done. You get 3/4 of a point for that. Claire.
Yeah, I agree with Maureen. I'm very doubtful about this rumor. I don't really know where it comes from. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they were considering it. I'm sure they're considering all sorts of things, and they're having presentations, to their top management with various options for them and what they do next. Why they would do that, I don't really understand. So my Podmoji, because I have one, is about
the classic.
The classic. Yep. That's my doubtful Podmoji. Don't really love it when. Yeah.
Not convinced. Got you.
Not Absolutely. Convinced. We might be wrong. Who knows?
Right, good. That's what people tune in for. That's where the value is. I don't know. We might as well rename the podcast. No, I think there's been enough. There's been enough definite opinion in this podcast to keep people going. The next one, we're going to stay with you, Claire, and it's it just, these words strip off the tongue, and it just sounds like nice and comforting and homely. In that the words are, Barnes and Noble is doing fine.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble is doing fine, and the nice thing is. So the reason why it's interesting is, in the year of Amazon, who would have thought that a chain of bookstores could do so well? I don't know if any of you have seen, or you must have seen, You've Got Mail, which was basically a takedown of Barnes & Noble as this soulless, impersonal retailer crushing all the mom and pop shops. Well, now Barnes & Noble's is the cuddly mom and pop shop that we all want to succeed, and Amazon is the bad guy. Well, they are doing well, and they're doing well in large part because of a British man called James Daunt, who was the CEO of Waterstones from 2000. First of all, he came from Daunt Books, who you will be familiar with if you live in London. But then he became the CEO of Waterstones and turned Waterstones around. And then he did so well that the owner of Waterstones, who also owns Barnes and Nobles, took him and brought him over to the US to do the same at Barnes and Nobles. And lo and behold, he has. So both chains are now doing quite well. They have refocused on being booksellers. You may remember a time where they were selling lots of things that had nothing to do with books. If you go into any of them now, it's much more focused on books. It's got a much flatter hierarchy. Obviously, they've reduced their personnel as well. They've invested in technology, and they are become places where people want to go hang out and buy books. And so Barnes and Nobles and Waterstones, the new small mom and pop shops, are doing very well. Thank you very much, which makes me happy. So that's my emoji. But emoji is
just a happy face.
Happy. Happy face.
Perfectly legitimate and very
story.
popular emoji. Their happy face. Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah, I love the story. One, because it makes Claire happy, and we love it when she's happy. But it's kind of everything that we want to do, which is the serenity and entertainment of browsing bookshops.
Yeah.
And I think in the UK, in particular, Waterstones is thriving on the same principles as Barnes and Nobles, of course, and Mr. James Daunt did his stuff here first before he then took it across over to the US. But I picked up a stat that said we still love physical books. 61% of Britons say they prefer them, and they love to give books as gifts. And I think more recently, Penguin Random House actually acquired a nice little publishing firm, which is personalized books on demand, called Wonderbly, which sells over 11 million books worldwide. They gifts. I don't know if you like Wonderbly or not Wonderbly, but it's a lovely little book publishing company. Anyway, it's I think it's lovely in this age of algorithms and online speed. I think it's lovely to be able to just walk into a bookshop, a physical bookshop, bricks and mortar, and then just discover books. Serendipity. The serendipitous moments are wonderful. Anyway, and I just love the fact that Claire smiled. So my
Does it make it sound like I never smile?
No, sorry, I didn't mean that. I know you're always smiling, but you have an extra long smile. Like the longevity of that smile was good.
Nice
there we go.
Very good. Well done. Very good deflection. That was excellent. But, and then the problem, I hardly need to ask.
Smile back.
You're smiling as well. 2 smiley faces. Okay, well, that makes the scoring 1 7/8 of a point each. It's a draw. It's a draw this week. So congratulations. Well done. That's very good. You're both first equal, I call that, on the podium together, hand in hand, with a laurel wreath celebrating. Marvellous. What a magnificent episode that was. I love the arms dealer stuff. I thought that was absolutely amazing. We've had some interesting and probably good overall news, and Barnes and Noble is okay. I can't imagine anything worse than browsing a bookshop. It just drives me absolutely insane when you can scroll. I can't I'm not a very good reader. I read very slowly, so I don't really go for books. And it probably reminds me of having to follow my father around as he goes, looking for some book on how to cut a hedge properly. Bless you, Father, but really, your taste in reading. So that's it. We've had ChatGPT, we've had us as manga, we've had us as Simpsons characters, and we've got one as South Park characters for you to enjoy after the show. We will possibly put those on LinkedIn, depending on how respected we think they are. Maureen's just got it. She seems to be smiling, which is always good. In the meantime, we will see you later. Hope you enjoyed that bumper edition. I certainly did. Goodbye, Maureen, for now.
Goodbye, Oliver. Goodbye, Claire. Goodbye, everybody.
And goodbye, Claire, for now.
Goodbye, everyone.
And see you on the next one. Bye-bye.